It's high time to speak about the most widely used driver. It's the AV and custom systems driver. I will also speak about its control via IP. That means that you can control any equipment using HTTP, UDP, TCP protocols with the help of the AV and custom systems driver. Most script drivers in iRidium database were realized via these protocols. These drivers enable you to control any equipment from appealing to a web server via HTTP to request of weather or control of any audio-video equipment, media servers, converters, amplifiers, or any other devices. When working with iRidium drivers, you can use instructions of their setup of concrete drivers, as these instructions can differ greatly, and their setup depends on properties of command sending used for this concrete driver. All settings for script drivers are defined by functional the driver includes. I'll tell you about creating a driver for sending commands via TCP, UDP, or HTTP protocols with the help of the AV and custom systems driver. The most popular case, sending data via TCP, that means sending data to the equipment connected to local net through Ethernet or Wi-Fi. If you want to add a new driver to iRidium project, you should drag it to the project overview tree using the drag and drop method. And now you can see this driver in the list. Here you can see settings of connection to a control device. The first one is host, that is IP address or domain name of a device we are controlling, and the second port, that is TCP port of a control device. When working with drivers in iRidium, these settings must be always written in, otherwise connection won't be set up. The AV and custom systems driver includes the tokens tab. Here you can find all settings of connection to the control equipment, which you can input on graphic items of the interface. It also includes the commands tab and the feedbacks tab. But in a basic type, when you don't use scripts for processing data, channels of the feedbacks tab won't work, as there are no rules of defining connection to the control equipment. Now let's stop on the commands tab, that is TCP request, which we can send to the equipment. There can be lots of commands. The number of them depends on the number of requests you want to send to the equipment. Input data is always a string of the ASCII format, which must be sent to the control equipment, and in some cases there can be data of the hex format. We'll stop on sending a data string to device via TCP. This string should be input in the data window of a command selected in the project overview tree. Let's pass over to the properties window data, and let's input data we need to send to the device. As I have already mentioned, it can be any string. In order iRidium to interpret the string correctly, you should use iRidium syntax, which defines format of data sending. It can be ASCII, hex formats, or format of sending binary data, but more often we use ASCII and hex. To input a string in the ASCII format, you have to isolate it by single quotes. When working via TCP, there must be a symbol of the end of line. Here you can see it, comma 13 or 0x0d. Isolated by single quotes and finished by the end of line. Your TCP command will be sent to the control equipment and performed if you use correct syntax for command sending for this type of equipment. Let's suppose that you have to send a data string via the UDP. The UDP driver must be also added to the project overview tree, and I have used the drag and drop method again. Host and port of connection must be set up, but in contrast with the TCP driver, We don't use a login and a password, which are necessary in order to open a protected session. When IP address and port are set up, let's pass over to command creation. It's the same as it was with the command creation via the TCP protocol. The only difference is that an isolated by single quote string should not be finished by the end of line. Commands via the UDP needed to be isolated. The next way of data sending, appealing to a media server via HTTP. These commands can be used wherever you want, for example, in emulation of web interface of the control equipment. When working via HTTP, you should also input IP address of control system, connection port to the system, login, and a password. Here you can switch on or switch off SSL and point any user agent, Safari, Opera, Firefox, or any other. Commands for the HTTP driver are formed in the GET and POST formats. GET and POST ways of data sending to the control equipment. Data of the GET format is sent by adding it to the URL address of an executed script. To create a GET request in the HTTP driver, you should input a command and delete part of the command. That is the main name of the control system. Meanwhile, the front slash of this command must be in its right place. You can create lots of commands. Data of the POST format are sent as whole data files, which is stored in the data window. You can input any code in this window. POST is used for sending great amount of data, but you will often use GET requests, which are formed as simple string which can be checked through browser window at any moment. So here our acquaintance with an abstract driver for controlling equipment via IP is over. You can find more information about iRidium command syntax on our wiki. Links are in the attachment to the lessons of iRidium Academy. Thank you for your attention.